What's going on, gamers? Today we're going to be diving into a bit more Diablo 4, and what we're going to be covering today is going to be the Druid, all about its boons, which ones are the best, the most powerful ones that you should choose, and why you should be using them. So if that interests you, then stay tuned. That's coming up next. Welcome back everybody. Today we're going to be taking a look at the Druid class, checking out his boons, exactly what they do, and why you should be using certain ones in your build in order to get the most out of them. Now, in order to unlock the boons for your Druid, it is going to be an early game quest. There's going to be a priority quest that opens up at level 15. You're going to need to head over to Skosglen and make your way to this town just here, Dora. However, at the start it is going to be a stronghold, and the enemies inside are around about level 25. So depending on your build and how strong you actually are, you may want to come here after you've leveled up a bit. However, after you've beaten that stronghold, this is going to open up and you'll be able to start progressing your spirit boons. Just down in this area here, spirit boons can be unlocked as you're playing by defeating the enemies and such, and they'll be dropping offerings on the ground. Pick these up and you're going to want to put them towards your favourite spirit animal in order to unlock its spirit boon. Each spirit animal is going to take 100 of these offerings in order to fully unlock everything they've got, and the animals that you can choose from are going to be the deer, the eagle, the wolf and the snake. The snake doesn't show you exactly what's on offer until you completely unlock it. Also, another great thing to note, you'll be able to pick one kind of passive spirit boon for each of these animals, but once you've unlocked all of them and every single one of their boons by fully topping up on their offerings, you're going to be able to align with one of these animals in order to take up 2 boons instead of 1, so you'll be able to have 5 on your character overall. However, not all of these boons are quite as good as some of the others, so which one should you be looking at? So the first animal we're going to be taking a look at is going to be the deer, and what I'll be doing is ranking each of these boons from what I believe them to be the best, in which case I'll give them an S, all the way down to a C, which is ones that I think are probably a little less worthy of picking. And speaking of one that's a little bit less worthy of picking, the first one you've got here, Pickle Skin, you're going to gain a certain amount of thorns if this is the spirit boon you want to activate. I would say this is one of the worst ones to have, definitely stay clear of this. Druid is probably not the best with thorns, it can work a little bit, but having this over a lot of the other ones is probably not worth it. So leave this one alone, we're going to give it a C and move on to some other better ones. Next up, and we've got Gift of the Stag. This one is going to allow you to have another 10 additional spirit. Whilst that might not sound like much, sometimes it can mean the difference between being able to activate a skill or not being able to use it, so this one can come in quite handy. And whilst not top tier, I'd definitely say this is one you might want to think about for your build, as it can definitely help out in quite a few playstyles, and you can of course put even more on through your gear and your Paragon board. For that reason, I'd say it's one that's probably worthy of a B rank. Whilst not the best, it's still a good one to look at. Now, I was in 2 minds about this one. I was going to rank it a little bit lower earlier, and that's Wariness. Give yourself 10% extra damage mitigation from elites. I was going to bop this into the B tier, however, after playing some of the later tiers with some of my other characters, I think this one's probably one you may want to look at if you're going to be in amongst the thicker things, whereas most times with a Druid you pretty much are. So for that reason, I'm going to rank this one as an A, as I think it's a worthy choice in pretty much nigh on most builds. And lastly, one that people will probably call me crazy, but Advantageous Beast is actually a really nice one on the Druid, as any time you can get out of those crowd control effects, it's well worth having on. This, I would say, is definitely worthy of an A, because along with a couple of other things in your skill tree, and if you can place one piece on your armour, it means you're almost out of those crowd control effects much faster than pretty much any of the other classes. And with just how much CC goes on in this game, sometimes that can be an absolute blessing. Going over to the Eagle, and we're kicking it off with Scythe Talons. Gain 5% critical strike chance. This one is going to be nice and simple, but it gives you 5% critical strike chance. Straight in, it's going to be chucked at A. Anytime you can get additional strike chance is going to be amazing. I wish it was a little bit higher, but Druid actually has a lot of strike chance going on in its builds, so being able to get additional of that can definitely help you out. I mean, you see a lot of crit and crit damage coming your way. Next up, and another simple one, we've got Iron Feather. This one just straight up gives you 10% extra max health. Honestly, as you start progressing through the game, you realise how essential health is. Just from not being able to get one shot because you have that additional maximum health can be an absolute lifesaver. And for that reason, I'd say this one also works in pretty much nigh on any build, and again is well worthy of an A. Swooping attacks. Again, nice and simple, 10% extra attack speed. Attack speed, attack speed, attack speed in some builds, especially with your werewolf, can be an absolute sight to behold. For that reason, I'm going to give this one, along with the others, this one's going to be getting an A. And lastly, to top it off, we're going to go with Avian Wrath. This one gives you 30% critical strike damage. Anytime you can rack up that crit damage, it is well worth putting into your build. And with the Druid, like I said, you're able to crit very often. So I'm going to round this off and make every single one on this line an A, and well worth having in pretty much any of your build. So pick the one, or if you've aligned, pick the two that you think will work out best for your character. Jumping over to the Wolf, and we're going to kick it off with Pack Leader. This one, your lucky hit, your critical strikes have up to a 20% chance to reset the cooldown of your companion skills. Now it is a lucky hit, there is only a 20% chance, but whereas most things with the Druid are going to be an AoE effect going on, this resets your companion builds very often. In fact, I'd say it's one of the strongest boons that you can pick up, and if you're going with a companion build, it's almost a necessity. Being able to see those creepers or those ravens just constantly popping, allowing you to press them over and over again whenever you want to proc it, and it's just a lot of fun to see. For that reason, this one's going to be the first one we're going to be chucking out there that's going to be that S rank. Just over from here, and we've got Energized. Again, your lucky hit, dealing damage has up to a 15% chance to restore 10 spirit. This one sounds absolutely amazing on paper, however when I was using it I found it wasn't quite as effective as I was hoping. If you've got a build that can absolutely devastate things in a big old AoE, this may well be something you want to look into, but I found it wasn't proccing quite as much as I was hoping. For that reason, I'm going to chuck it in at an A rather than an S, but if you could make it work, and especially if you are struggling to actually get that resource, it may well be a boon that you want to put on your build. Next up, and we have Bolster. I could definitely see this working in certain playstyles, maybe ones where you'll be using werebear form, or have at least 2 defensive skills going on in your build, but ultimately, compared to a lot of the others, it's probably a little bit on the weaker side, and Druid is able to generate Fortify in a lot of additional ways. So personally, I would say this is one of the weaker ones, and I'd probably drop it in at the C tier. Over to Calamity, this one's nice and easy to understand. It's going to extend the duration of your ultimate skills by 25%. Anytime a boon will do something that you usually weren't able to do any other way, makes it better than most of the others, and this one's definitely a standout one. If you're into your ultimate skill and you want to boost its longevity, then this is going to be the way to do it. As such, for that, we're going to chuck it straight in the S rank tier for anyone that likes using their ultimate skills. Down to the Snake, and the first one we'll be looking at is going to be Obsidian Slam. This one, every 20th kill is going to now mean you generate an overpower with your next hit. I've been making Nerf Druid, I find this a lot of fun to use, and it's probably going to be the one you'll pick if you are using Earth skills. I really want to put this in as S, because if you get your build right, this can be absolutely devastating, but because it is a bit hit and miss, and it does generate it after that 20th kill, it means you can't actually use it whenever you want. But for a lot of damage, a lot of AoE going on, this one's definitely worth putting in any of your Earth Druid builds. For that reason, we're going to be chucking it in at that A tier. Over to Overload, and for anyone using a lot of lightning, this is going to be your go-to. Dealing lightning damage has up to a 20% chance to cause the target to emit a static discharge, dealing a certain amount of lightning damage. This one, with your lightning builds where so much is going off on the screen already, can be a lot of fun to see and can do some great additional AoE damage. For that reason, we're going to be chucking it in at that S rank. Next up, and one that I think a lot of people will probably want to use, and that's going to be Masochistic. Your critical strikes with shape-shifting skills heal you for 3% of your life. Now that might sound awful, but if you manage to get a very fast with something such as a werewolf, then you can see this ramping up massively. Anytime you're able to keep yourself alive and able to put a bit of regen in your build, it's well worth having. For that reason, this one's going to go in that S rank as well. Lastly, topping off all of the boons, we've got the Calm Before the Storm. Your lucky hit, nature magic skills have up to a 10% chance to reduce the cooldown of your ultimate skills by 2 seconds. This is actually a really good way of making sure that you've got your ultimate up a lot more often than not, and it's a great one to put on for anyone that loves using their ultimate skills. Because it's 2 seconds a pop, you're going to see this reducing your ultimate quite often. The only time this struggles is going to be on those single targets, for example those bosses. But when you're taking out mobs and packs of enemies, this one is going to be amazing for having up that ultimate a lot more often than you would have, and it works hand in hand with the one we saw earlier with the 25% extra duration for anyone that really wants to bulk out their ultimate skills. Again, making this one in my opinion another S tier. Right, you gamers, hopefully that's helped a few of you guys and girls out. Let me know in the comments if there's any you think I've got massively wrong, as everyone will have a difference of opinion depending on their build and playstyle, but ultimately that's how I'd rank them personally, as they're the ones I'll be picking for my builds. But as always, there'll be a lot more content from me. For all things gaming, take care. I'll see you on the next day.